Hi, everyone, and welcome to Felt Sense. Back in the days, getting a 6 hour train ride from Moscow, where it fly from Sweden, to my hometown was quite eventful and never quiet thing to do. A train ride was an opportunity to connect to a stranger, having a heart to heart. And traditionally, your neighbor would share their life story, and you would share yours, and you would get an advice, friendly but completely unsolicited, from a grandma that took your struggles close to heart, and that was a bare minimum. Once on such ride, I met a musician who played me his songs for a few hours in a row. So that's the story that I still remember with a lot of warmth. And all those interactions, they required presence and engagement of a person next to you and with the person, whether it's a familiar or a stranger. So we don't do that anymore. And I thought that awkward silence in the presence of strangers was a Northern European thing, as I lived in Sweden. But no, even those train rides to my hometown became silent. And we're paying for it with our emotional and physical well being. And I'm not being dramatic. So today, I want to talk to you about loneliness. Loneliness as a public health crisis, something that statistically is as dangerous as smoking. Somehow we tend to associate loneliness with pandemic, but it started earlier and it's far from finished. It's also not about being buried in our devices at all times. It has to do with us not having the skill of connecting anymore. So let me start with numbers because they are worse than people realize. In May of 2023, the US Surgeon General issued a formal public health advisory on loneliness. He called it an epidemic, and he said that the health risk of chronic loneliness is comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. 2 years later, World Health Organization estimated that social disconnection contributes roughly to 871,000 deaths every year worldwide. And that's about 100 deaths every hour. Now, here are the prevalence numbers. 1 in 6 worldwide feels lonely. Another shocking piece of information. We tend to picture loneliness as an old person problem, but the data shows differently. In most wealthy countries, it's young adults, especially young males, that are the loneliest people. 27% of all people in their 20s say that they're fairly lonely. And among adults 65 and up, the number is only 17%. And the most recent Cigna survey put loneliness at 67% among Generation Z and 65 among millennials. So the most technologically connected generations in human history are actually the loneliest. The friendships collapsed in parallel, at least for males. In 1990, 55% of American men said that they had six or more close friends. And by 2021, that number was 27%. And the share of American men who has no close friends at all went from 3% to 15%. So it's a fivefold increase in one generation. And it's not about just having negative emotions, it actually has impact on physical health. The research that was conducted on 3.4 million people found that loneliness increases the risk of dying prematurely by 26 to 32%, which is comparable to smoking and bigger than air pollution or not exercising. The American Heart Foundation ties loneliness to a 29% higher risk of heart disease death and a 32% higher risk of stroke. The National Institute of Aging links it to a 31% higher risk of dementia. So when the Surgeon General calls this an epidemic, he's not being dramatic, not really. So what happened really? When things go wrong, we tend to find someone or something to blame. And the most popular villain in this story is, of course, the smartphone. And that's a reasonable candidate because the timing lines up. Teen depressions, anxieties, loneliness all started climbing sharply between 2010 and 2015, the years smartphones and social media saturated adolescent life. But the smartphone is not really the whole story. The loneliness trend started a long, long time before the smartphone. In the year 2000, a political scientist, Robert Putnam, published a book called Bowling Alone. He had been tracking American civic life for decades, and what he found was a steady, multi decade collapse of social events such as bowling leagues, parent teacher associations, churches, unions, and even people hosting dinner parties. All went down. And that's year 2000. So before iPhone, before TikTok. So then it's not just the phone. Um, but what is it? It's actually everything around us. So, yes, it has to do with technological development and the service industry development, saving us a lot of time, but depriving us of the need for actual interaction. It is also an intensity of life and the need to switch off, hopefully without an effort. Television in the evenings, the smartphone on the bus ride, the elevator, the line at the grocery store, streaming instead of going to the movies, delivery instead of grocery shopping, remote work instead of connecting to a colleague at the office. So each opportunity made some part of life easier, yes, but with it, we took slowly and one step at a time every default opportunity to bump into another human being and be removed. We engineered the friction and time waste out, but with it, we engineered out the precious human experience. Quite often, I see the claim that loneliness is here now and there's nothing to do about, so we blame technology. But I don't think it's true. Here, I draw my inspiration from Esther Perel. She's a Belgian American psychotherapist and a relationship specialist. And it's not only about romantic relationships that she talks. In her opinion, the real problem is that we as a culture have stopped practicing the skill of required to be in real contact with another human being. So, like any skill, if it doesn't get practiced, it's becoming dormant. So, she calls it social atrophy. And this is how you can think about it. So, connecting to people, uh, striking a conversation is a muscle. So, if you don't use the muscle, it gets weaker, but it's not going to tell you that it's getting weaker. You only find out the day you try, let's say, to lift something, and then you can't. So, that's what social atrophy. A whole generation, if you think from 90s to 2020s, that has not had to make a small talk online or to hold an eye contact in an elevator or to sit through the awkwardness at a dinner party or repair a friendship after a fight or to sit beside someone who is sad. And then one day they try, and of course, they can't do that. It's too difficult to the point of being painful. So it becomes easier to look at the phone and, of course, mentally uh, disappear, like not being present in the painful reality. Esther Perel has another phrase or another two words that she's using, artificial intimacy. So it includes the AI agent that listens patiently and never disagrees with you. It's parasocial relationship with an influencer that you have never met but follow on Instagram. It's a dating app where the conversation goes on for weeks but you never meet. Those interactions are not, let's say, I don't want to call them nothing, but they don't have context. They are not what they look like. They are like intimacy shaped, like they can be ball shaped. Uh, it's they have a shape of intimacy, but They have a form of intimacy without this content. So Esther Perel says that practicing intimacy with these substitute, especially AI-based ones, may be eroding our capacity for real intimacy and connection. So real intimacy is rarely smooth. It requires being misunderstood and then clarifying. It requires repair after rupture. It requires tolerating the fact that the other person has their own needs on bad days, on opinions that conflict with yours. And system always validates you, is not repairing you for any of that. um, that's like stationary bike relational version, so you can pedal forever but you can never get anywhere. So Esther Perel says that modern loneliness is masked by hyperconnectivity. We are seemingly in constant contact with each other, and we have never been more alone. The pings that you get on your device, they simulate a relationship but do not constitute it. And here is why I find it freeing instead of depressing. Connection is actually a skill. So a skill can be learned. It can be lost, but it can come back. So the starting point does not determine your ceiling. If there is one piece of the skill that has disappeared, I think it's the willingness to talk to a stranger. Um, it used to be the substrate of a public life. So you waited for a bus and you might have talked to another person that was waiting. You sat at a counter and traded a sentence with whoever was eating alone next to you. You stood in line and learned something about your neighborhood. Even keeping eye contact and offering a smile to someone passing by you has become something that we no longer do. We have stopped all of it. And the phone, yes, blame the technology, occupies the in between spaces. The headphones complete the wall, and we think we want to be on our own. And maybe that's true. And after a long day of work, all we want is a moment of quiet because we don't really get it. There is a lot of sensory input. But we completely underestimate how much we enjoy a simple human interaction. So there is a researcher, his name is Nicholas Epley, at the University of Chicago. So he took commuters in Chicago and split them in three groups. So first group would talk to strangers sitting next to them. The second group sit in solitude and they enjoy their quiet ride. And the third group just did whatever they would normally do, like a kind of placebo group, I would say. So before the experiment, he asked the groups of the commuters which condition they thought they would like the most or what would make them the happiest, and the prediction was expected. Everybody asked for solitude or thought that solitude would be the most enjoyable. Talking to a stranger sounded awful, and the actual result was the opposite. So the commuters who talked to a stranger reported a significantly higher rides than those that sat alone. So Oakville has replicated this experiment in different cities, and the finding holds every single time. So we're systematically wrong about how a conversation with a stranger will go. So we expect it to be a burden, but it turns out to be a joy. So aptly calls this our untapped superpower. So there is a reliable source of well-being available to us in nearly every public space, and we choose not to use it because we're absolutely certain that no one wants to be bothered, and we are very wrong. We also underestimate how much the other person enjoyed the conversation, how positively they judge us afterwards, how good we feel for the rest of the day. And then there is the research, what sociologists call weak ties. So there are people in your life who are not your close friends and not your family, and but you see them regularly. For example, a barista at the cafe, or a dog walker in the neighborhood, or the parent you like kind of nod at during school pickup. Maybe a neighbor down the hall. So there are two research, Gillian Sandstrom and Elizabeth Dunn. They tracked these interactions and they found that the number of weak tie interactions a person had on a given day predicted their happiness that day, independent how much time they spent with their close family and friends. And as you see, it's not just deep friendships or deep relationships. The small, almost anonymous daily exchanges with people in your environment are doing the real emotional work. In a follow up experiments, they sent people to Starbucks. Half were told to have an efficient transactional interaction with a cashier, no talk. The other half were told to have a brief, genuine human moment with the cashier. So just a few extra seconds. So the second group, of course, reported immeasurably better mood afterwards from 15 seconds of an exchange. We have been thinking of our social life like a pyramid, from deep relationships, a few deep relationships on the top of this pyramid that would do all the work, and everything else that goes down is a noise. And the research says that it's actually the other way around. So the base of the pyramid, the casual exchanges, is doing more of the load bearing than many of us realize. And whether that when that base disappears, even people with strong close friendship feel a bit adrift. So what do we do? If connection is a skill, and I am convinced that that is, then the rest of the skill comes back the way every skill comes back. So slowly, by doing easy version first and tolerating being bad at it. I want to give you four small moves. First, take the headphones out for 1 hour in the day. Just take the wall down and see who you become available to if somebody talks to you. Second, treat the transactional people in your life as potential friends. Ask the cashier how is their shift going, read the name tag and use the name, thank the bus driver out loud, and use this 50 seconds human moment. Third one, recover a third place. The sociologist Ray Oldenburg coined that term. A third place is the place that is neither home nor work, and where you go often enough to that the regulars know you. It can be a coffee shop, a gym, a library, a church, or a club. So the collapse of the third places is one of the big quiet engines of modern loneliness. Rebuild one for yourself. And the fourth one. It's quite hard, but let's try. Stop using AI for the parts that should hurt a little. The 2 a.m. spiral that should be a text to a friend, the hard conversation that gets rehearsed in the chat window and never actually delivered, the grief that gets processed with machine instead of someone who knew the person you lost. It's convenient, yes, but we again pay the cost for it. I think it's time to do emotional heavy lifting and choose a real person to talk to in the moment of need. And here is what I want to leave you with. We did not stop being capable of connection. We stopped being in situations that required it. So, for most of human history, we simply couldn't get through a day without a dozen of small interactions with people that you didn't know or you were not even trying to know. For example, even ask for directions. So, we have engineered our way out of every of those defaults and made our lives very efficient and easier in many ways, yes. But here's what I want to say: the awkwardness was also the curriculum. The accident, striking this accidental conversation, uh, the conversations that you didn't even want to have, like with a neighbor that you don't even like, those were all important experiences too. So this is how we became people that are capable of harder things, communicating with a difficult partner or comforting a grieving person, showing the empathy, staying in a friendship that needs repair. And as we remove the friction, we kind of remove the need to connect as humans. So if you want to change things for yourself and feel less lonely, You just need to have to start the day with the smallest version of that skill. Uh, Talking to a barista, smiling at the neighbor or stranger at the train. So I believe that Esther Perel is right, and the skill, just as muscle atrophies, it can be rebuilt. And the data is unambiguous that we absolutely need to have it back. Another most surprising finding of the last decade of behavioral science, um, actually, because we have been so wrong for so long, that the most people around you are hoping that you will go first in the human interaction. So go first. Be the one who looks up at the elevator. Be the one that asks cashier how their day is going. Be the one who texts a friend. Be the one who says hello to a person next to you on the train. It will not change the world immediately, but like all the small things, it will create ripples. And ripples eventually do it up and create a change that we crave. Thank you for listening. If something here landed for you, I want you to do one thing today. Share it with one specific person that you have been meaning to call or send a text message to. You don't need to post it on your page for everyone. Well, feel free if you want to, but send it to that specific person, maybe with a couple of sentences of your thoughts and what resonated with you. And that's how you can start.